Welcome to Reflections, Monday's short-form studio feature ahead of Friday's Photo Walk podcast. Thoughtful observations on creativity and, well, just life, really. You'll find all 5 of this week's reflections on our Patreon channel, The Extra Mile. The nature of fragility. Here is a story from, has to be about 15, 16, who knows, 17 years ago. It's a while anyway. I was driving back from the portrait studio I had on a farm, midwinter, 6 p.m. darkness, no street lamps, a wet and rainy wind-swept night, wipers working like metronomes, Stuff from trees along the B road I was driving clanged off the roof, like I was being pelted with conkers doused in vinegar and then varnished. As I eased up a hill halfway along the 5 or 6 mile journey I took every single evening home, a rather large tree gave up on standing. It let go in that sort of heavy way only a waterlogged tree can. A long creak, I would imagine, if I'd have heard it, and then thump, right across the road, mere seconds after I passed. I saw it starting to fall in slow motion as I drove underneath it. I ducked in the cab, like that would have done any good at all. And then bang! It flattened fence posts on one side, the left side, and then punched a chunk out of a brick wall on the other side of the road, leaving its trunk there like a sleeping whale. I didn't see all of this in the rearview mirror, of course. I was simply happy to have passed. But being on an incline with a long twist in the road ahead, I stopped and flashed my lights like I was a DJ's strobe light until the oncoming cars, 2 or 3 of them, had stopped. We all got out to inspect the damage. Years later, somebody chastised me for stopping, saying that such a heavy, big tree falling might well have persuaded a few others around it that they were next. But by the by, we were all okay, except for the fencing and the wall around this large estate. I dare say they had the budget to fix it up again. So all these years later, the lower end of the trunk is actually still there on its side. The wall across the road has an obvious new patch, though the fence has been reclaimed by vegetation and you'd be hard-pushed to see if anything had changed there, not driving by at any rate. Things fall, things end. Even the big, apparently permanent ones that have stood there longer than we've been worrying about sensor sizes and which lens is sharpest at f4. Fragility is not only smashable glass and lost phones, it's time. And time is careless with our favourites. Should be a song in that, shouldn't there? The face you love, the cafe you duck into on autopilot, the wall of ivy you promised to photograph when the light's better, the way late sun grazes the kitchen floor for 6 minutes in August. We carry on as if the world will hand us a second go at this one. It rarely does. A builder arrives, a branch fails, a habit changes, the light moves and doesn't come back at that angle again. Well, I didn't catch it at any rate. And the cafe goes and closes. And it was my favourite, the one that did the best bacon butties. Photography, I have come to find, is the closest thing we have to a polite interruption. It taps us on the shoulder and says, "Excuse me, that's there over there. Grab your camera, would you? Don't miss it." That's a lot to hang on a shutter click, I know, but look at the photographs that stay with you. Sally Mann, a favourite of this feature, I know I make no apologies, is often discussed in terms of this kind of thing. If you really look into Sally's pictures, in fact, I don't think you really have to look. You can see tenderness. You can see knocked knees, summer skin, the hell breath between laughter and sulking. Sally's pictures record a childhood that won't repeat. Not because of scandal or technique, but because childhood itself is a brief weather system. She paid attention while it passed through her home. Then, and I know this might seem obvious, there's Robert Capa, wading ashore at Normandy with a camera that barely survived. The negatives came back smeared and shaky. People have argued for years about exactly why, but the truth of the pictures doesn't care. The blur is the point. The line between living and not living was a thin, trembling thing that morning. The photographs carry that tremble. That's fragility, loud and undeniable. But most of our days are not a battlefield or a museum. They're school runs and dog walks and work stuff, which is where fragility, funnily enough, I think hides best. That's where it wears normal clothes, plain-clothed fragility. The local shop with a wonky bell that will become flats with a jaunty brochure. Honestly, my town's full of them. Estates with boxy houses called things like Willow Pastures or Badger Brook. Careful, Neil. I just moved into one of those in my town. No offence, sorry, but you know what I mean. And I bet your roof doesn't leak like ours. The old dog who snores like a miniature tractor will one day give the chair back to the room. Barney, I'm talking about you. You don't need to chase drama to meet fragility. You only need to notice what's already vanishing at the edges. And that's the responsibility and the privilege of carrying these boxes we do. We, you and I, we are the lucky ones. We say a lot with where we point the lens. We also say a lot with what we walk past. Editing happens before we sit at a screen. It happens every time we take a walk. So here we are on a Monday. Here is a micro assignment to take with you into the week, if you should feel like doing it. Photograph 3 small things that won't wait. It's no trophies, no sunsets, nothing you need a helicopter for. Start inside your home. Open a cupboard and photograph the shelf where the mugs live, or something like it. Photograph the dent on the banister from a suitcase dragged up the stairs after a long flight. I got in a lot of trouble for that. Photograph the coat on the hook that still smells like the rain from this morning. Then step outside. Make a picture of your street corner from the height a child might see it, where the weeds do their stubborn little dance between the slabs maybe. Ask a friend for a portrait while the coffee's still warm, no performance required, just the way they are when they thought nobody was looking. None of these pictures will trend, which is why they count. They are, you'll like this, I hope, the receipts for a life being lived. You said 3, you gave us 5, possibly 6 there. Counting's not my strong point, you know that. I drove past that fallen tree a couple of weeks back, which is why I'm thinking of it now. You could miss it if you didn't know the story, which you now do. I didn't stop. It's not exactly the safest place to stop. But note to self, if there's an opportunity, make sure you do one day, and sooner than tomorrow. So yes, fragility is nature and people and plans, and. It can be spectacular, but mostly it's ordinary. And that's good news for us. The ordinary is available, and this week it's half price and in plentiful supply. But it might change at any moment.